if you're listening to this, Shedeur Sanders and Quinn Ewers still have not been drafted. I kid, I joke. They finally went day 3, round 5, and round 7. Today we're going to jump in and talk about the Big Ten contenders and pretenders. Massive conference, way too many teams. What has it got? Like 18 teams now in the Big Ten?
18, but only 10 of them are big.
My favorite is when the Big Ten went to 11. They came up with the really creative logo of putting the 11 inside the Big Ten. And then it got weird when the Big Ten went to 12 teams and the Big 12 had 10 teams. And then we were all just kind of screwed up. And then everybody just said, screw it, let's just go to like as many teams as possible and let's get rid of the Pac-12. And now here we are.
On the Pac-12, yeah.
And now here we are with Rutgers and UCLA playing in a conference game at either 9 a.m. UCLA time or 10 o'clock at night Rutgers time.
Piscataway time.
Piscataway, yeah, Piscataway, New Jersey. Something that if you had asked us 5 years ago, we never thought would be possible, and I still don't like it, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to talk about it. But anyways, let's start off. We'll talk about the draft first. Give our little bit. We talked a little bit last week. I don't think anybody on their draft board was even close to thinking that Shedeur Sanders would go, let alone day 3, in the 5th round.
Yeah, I thought he was going to go late first. 5th round is insane. But I do have a question, Jake. I know Shedeur Sanders was the talk of the entire draft, which sucks for Cam Ward, a guy who that should have been the story. Zero-star recruit, up to 1st round pick, number 1 overall pick. That should have been the story. However,
there's so many great storylines about the 1st round. There's so many guys that are worthy of talking about, but Shedeur Sanders just happens to be it because who he is, who his dad is, and
that's not his fault. That's the media being the media and trying to capitalize on that. However, I think it's crazy that Quinn Ewers didn't go until the 7th round, or maybe I'm crazy.
No, I think you're right there. I mean, Quinn Ewers was considered, as close to a perfect high school prospect as they come. 247 had him ranked, 1,000, which I think there's only been like 6 guys that have ever been a 1,000. And funny enough, I'm pretty sure all 7 of them are kind of busts. I don't think any of them are actually all that good.
Hey, Trevor Lawrence, phenomenal.
Okay, Trevor Lawrence, was he considered a 1,000?
I think so. I'll look it up, but I thought it was insane that he lasted that long because he had a good career. I mean, maybe his injury is worse than we thought, but I don't know. That's insane to me that a player of his caliber, of his name, went behind Graham Mertz. Out of all people.
I take that back. That's the biggest surprise of the NFL draft. The fact that Graham Mertz got drafted. I have a personal vendetta against this because Graham Mertz is terrible. Graham Mertz is not good. You can go look at his stats when he was at Florida. That's fine. Whatever. You go ahead and look at the box scores. When I watch Graham Mertz, he is not good. If you watched the first game of his career, you would think, wow, this guy is the 1st overall pick. If you watch the rest of his career, you're wondering how he even got picked in the draft. I'm also curious why Riley Leonard got drafted so high. Riley Leonard can't throw the ball very well, and he got drafted above Shedeur Sanders and Quinn Ewers. And he got drafted above Graham Mertz too, which should be drafted above Graham Mertz.
Trevor Lawrence was not 1,000. He was a 1-on-1 24/7 sports rated guy, but composite was 9,999.
So I'm looking at these all-time players. So Jadeveon Clowney they have as number 1. Cyrus Kouandjio at number 2. Forgot about him. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence at 3. Justin Fields at 4. Brian Brisset at 5.
Hey.
Bryce Young at 6. Walker Little, the offensive tackle from Stanford, at 7. Robert Nkemdiche at 8. Leonard Fournette at 9. And then tied with him at 9 is Jeremiah Smith. Myles Garrett's at 11.
Who's Jeremiah Smith?
Never heard of him.
Yeah, me neither.
As I go down here, so Quinn Ewers is tied at 13th with Rashawn Gary, Vince Young, and Ernie Sims. I mean, there's definitely some hits in here, and there's definitely some misses. Travis Hunter is on here. I mean, you've got a couple of Heisman winners in here. You've also got some absolute flops, absolute flops on here. Trenton Thomas was the number 1 overall player, went to Georgia, and I'm not even sure if he got drafted.
I don't think so. I don't remember.
He was 2015. Not sure he got drafted. Ernie Sims out of Florida State. He was early 2000s. remember looking.
He got hurt.
Walter Nolan's on here, who obviously got drafted this past weekend. I mean, Doyle Green Beckham's on here. There's a lot of other issues with that. He did get drafted though. And then, you start going back with those guys that don't even have photos because it's been that long.
Yeah.
Some, I mean, Arch Manning is listed on here. It's close. He's 0.9995. So some of them obviously pan out, but Quinn Ewers is listed here, tied for 13th. Obviously, you originally committed to Ohio State, went there for, about 4 months, took a vacation to Columbus, and then went to Austin, Texas.
Yeah. It's like, why did you go in the first place? I didn't get that.
I mean, so when he originally committed, that was when Steve Sarkisian had not been hired yet. And then there was the whole question of, is Texas even good? And then meanwhile, you're watching Ryan Day, at that point, I believe they would have had Justin Fields, and Justin Fields just went pro, and they had Dwayne Haskins, who just went pro. You just saw Ohio State put a couple quarterbacks in the league and go, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Texas
was
is
behind because he reclassified. He was going to be out Justin Fields, and then he came to back up Justin Fields.
Well, no, he reclassified, and when he came, it was the first season of C.J. Stroud.
You're right. That's right.
But he didn't walk onto campus until like August 15th or something like that, like 2 weeks before the first game. So there was no chance he was even going to remotely come close to playing.
Yeah.
You don't just like step onto campus and be like, okay, boys, I'm going to go play big time Big Ten football here.
Yeah. That's crazy thinking. And speaking of crazy thinking, should we be concerned for Bill Belichick?
I think I'm concerned for Bill Belichick. I don't follow North Carolina football very close, but he keeps popping up in the media, and he probably should not be popping up in the media for a 24-year-old girlfriend.
Hey, he was trying to publicize or to market his new book, Jake, which nobody knows what that book is called because everyone's talking about that interview, and not for the reasons he wanted to be talked about.
Usually when you want to talk about a book, you go on like a book tour kind of thing. You do that stuff. And usually you're not pretty obligated to a high-level FBS Power 4 football team. Team that actually has a pretty strong brand, has a pretty strong fan base, and a pretty large alumni backing, might be basically the home of Jordan Brand almost. Like, exactly. So it just doesn't. She's not like even an official employee either.
She is a high-ranking employee for Bill Belichick Enterprise. Thank you very much, Jake.
You're right. She is a Belichick Enterprise employee.
Yeah, this is I feel like Bill Belichick's being held hostage. Long gone are the days of Belichick being a badass and everybody being afraid of him. At this point, you've been broken by a 24-year-old girl.
If this was happening at a larger program, not that UNC isn't large, but like a program that was way more likely to be involved on the national level this year, would Bill Belichick be getting some sort of ultimatum at this point? Like, would he be sitting here, getting talked to by like athletic directors and boosters, being like, you got to get her out of here?
That's probably happening now. As long as she's being CC'd, she has to be CC'd on every email. Yeah, I don't know how much longer UNC is going to deal with that. I mean, because it makes them look like a joke. It really does. And this whole situation has become a clown show, and it's really getting out of hand.
I mean, everybody already thought it was kind of weird North Carolina hiring Bill Belichick, a coach in his 70s, when you just had Mac Brown retire, who was also in his 70s. But Bill Belichick was like 6 months younger.
Yeah. Hey, he's a spring chicken. But, I mean,
usually
this
when
is going to be a huge distraction.
When you get these kind of clown shows, and especially for a program that's trying to completely overhaul the culture and the change, not that Mac Brown
they're overhauling it all right.
I mean, they brought in a lot of different guys, brought in a ton of transfers, but also had a ton of guys transfer out.
Yeah.
Pretty good talented guys that have transferred out. And I'm wondering with some of these, and maybe some of them were 4 or 5 stars that just didn't really pan out. I really haven't looked at the destinations where they're going. I've just noticed a couple of their 4 and 5 star guys have transferred out. Is it because of Bill Belichick and the system, Or is it because of Bill Belichick and the situation?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, it happened pretty fast. So either stuff's being released out there faster than we thought, or that we're hearing it, or yeah, they just didn't jive with them. Also, since we're on the topic, when did they change the logo for the Jordan brand from the dunk to Jordan Hudson sitting at the desk?
Ooh. Probably gonna happen sooner than later.
Yeah, that'd be good. Just for UNC though. Just for UNC.
Yeah, throw that patch on the logo.
Yeah,
just throw that patch on the logo, and nobody will even notice. From what I can see as of right now, I mean, they've lost. Looks like 1, 2.
Buckle my shoe.
I mean, I'm seeing at least. Let's see. 247 site is so hard to navigate with. Why can't you just show me who is left and who's coming in? But anyways, I know they lost Bo Atkinson. He went to Ohio State because that was a really big name. They was their best defensive end who was choosing between Georgia and Ohio State, which maybe he's going to a bigger program. But also, if you were going to leave, the spring portal window is weird to me because there usually means something happened in the spring. Because why wouldn't you enter in the winter portal if you wanted out?
Yeah, I'm saying he probably is seeing how practice is going, how things are being run. Is like, I don't want any part of this. This is not who I committed to. I wanted to give this school a chance. Maybe Bo Atkinson's a huge North Carolina fan and wanted to be there. And it's just like, hey, this is not good for my career. I need to get out of here before it gets worse.
I mean, I get wanting to stick around because it's Bill Belichick. You want to see what's gonna look like. You want to give it a shot. You've been there for a couple years,
right?
But usually it's either I want out, and that's fine. But spring portal is usually either if you have a new coach, it's something ain't right here, or I'm not getting my playing time. And Bo Atkinson was going to get his playing time, so it means something ain't right there.
Right. That
doesn't mean like I'm going for the big program. I want to go for as high as I can go, because if he wanted to go to the top programs, he could have done that in January as well.
Right.
There would have been nothing to stop him. So to me, this means like, hey, something happened in the spring. Maybe it's just like he doesn't like the defensive system they're bringing in, but maybe it's also something else.
Did you see Nico hit the transfer portal? Nico Ottomanelli.
Say that again.
Nico Ottomanelli. It's the kid.
That's a different name.
Nebraska. Yeah. They're similar. Maybe he's going to go to UCLA. That's going to be really easy for the announcers. Maybe Nico Iamaleava can do the hold, and Nico Ottomanelli can do the kick. That'll be easy. Really easy.
They would need a linguistics professor to be the announcer.
No, but in all seriousness, I think it's hilarious that Nebraska was like the first to really come out and say, hey, we're going to cancel our spring game because we don't want our players getting poached from the spring. And they lost 36 players to the transfer portal. 6 after the spring portal.
It's only been 6 during the spring portal.
But 36 is a hell of a lot of players, Jake. That's a lot of players. So
36 is a lot.
Yeah. Sounds like you were already going to lose your players anyways, Mr. Rule. But that's just – it's very interesting what's going on at some of these programs. Like Nebraska, money's not an issue in Nebraska. So it can't be that. You got a lot of cow farmers out there who want to pay to see their black shirts play well on Saturdays. So why are these people leaving? Why did Nico Ottomanelli enter the transfer portal to leave Nebraska? What
position is he?
He's a kicker.
Okay. I don't. Kickers entering the portal does absolutely nothing for me.
But his name is another Nico.
I would say if you count that as 6, I'm taking that down to 5 in the spring because I don't even count kickers entering the portal. Yes, 36 players is a lot, and I was 31 of them in the winter portal. That's a little bit scary.
And if you think about it too, a lot of those are probably because of this walk-on rule. Maybe they're guys that would have been kicked off the team because of the new walk-on rule that's coming in July, and hey, let's give you a shot to go somewhere else.
Apparently, that's being put on hold for right now.
Oops.
Yeah, I know. They're putting it on hold where they're not. Basically, what I saw is there's a chance there's no roster limit this year, and you're allowed to have walk-ons, and you're like no scholarship limit, and you're allowed to have walk-ons because the judges are taking their sweet time, and eventually you just have to make a decision because you eat like the portal season's over. If somebody's got more than 85, you now have to cut them. And if you go to some kid in July and be like, hey kid, we don't got a scholarship for you at this point.
Yeah,
you're gonna be like, well, I can't even transfer. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, knowing most schools, what they would do is be like, look, we're gonna take your scholarship, but we're gonna give you NIL to basically fund your whole scholarship.
Yeah. That's essentially what happened in my senior year, except I didn't have NIL. Senior year of high school. the only team
we'll give you NIL for high school.
Yeah, the only team to offer me a full ride pulled it after a week. Anyway, I'm not sad about it. I'm not sad about it. Put them on blast. It was Wingate. It was Wingate University. So they offered me a full ride. They said, hey, you have enough academics. We can give you half academic, half athletic. And since we're a D2 program, like we don't get as much athletic funding. That'd be great. Yada, yada, yada. They called me. Hey, by the way, this is not even a week later. They called me and said, hey, we gave your scholarship to a wide receiver. We need a wide receiver really bad. So sorry about that. You can still walk on if you'd like.
Do they not know that if you do not have offensive linemen, you cannot get the ball to the wide receiver? Well, you were tight end at that point.
I was tight end then. Yeah, you were tight end. They probably were going to move me to offensive line. I didn't realize that yet.
Everybody but you knew you were going to offensive line.
My offensive line coach told me, he said, Cockrell wants you to go ahead and get this in your head. You are going to play offensive line. You run slower than frozen molasses. And, they had to get the calendar out when I run my freaking 40-yard dash. Like I knew I should have known I wasn't playing tight end, but I had big dreams. I had hoop dreams, Jake. You were going to slow this big boy down. Us Cockerels are built for comfort, not for speed.
You're good at eating.
That's right. That's
not
right.
Running.
Well, the transfer portal's also gotten a little hot up in New York. Fran Brown's cooking late.
Fran Brown is cooking a little bit late, especially bringing in Johntay Cook. Obviously, he gets kicked out of Washington, goes back in the portal. I think this is like the perfect fit for Johntay Cook. I don't think
Fran Brown's not going to take his crap.
No. Johntay Cook's going to do one of two things. Johntay Cook is either going to be all ACC this spring, or he's not, or this fall, or he's not going to play football this fall. That's right. There's only two things I see.
Yeah, he will not make it to the first game of the season.
Like, Johntay Cook is going to be an absolute stud this fall.
If he can shut up. If he can just stop talking and not use social media.
Yeah. And Steve Jelly's there now, which means that
I love
they're gonna Jelly can throw the ball. He can air it out a little bit. I don't think he's gonna be as good as McCord, but I think he can air it out, and I think he can move a little bit too.
Yeah, he's way more athletic, and I think he fits that system very well. And then they go and pull the former number one offensive lineman in the country, Cam Pringle. Say, hey, you know how you protect Jelly? You go get a freaking 6'7", 300-pound behemoth from Fort Dorchester, South Carolina, to come block for him. So Fran Brown is cooking over there.
Suddenly, Syracuse looks like they could be trying to run it back. Now their schedule is significantly harder this year.
We
talked about it a couple weeks ago. They significantly harder. They don't have the cakewalk for schedule they did last year. But I like the pieces they're bringing in, and I think Johntay Cook is going to be an absolute monster for them this fall. That dude can straight up fly.
It makes you wonder why Trevor Pena. No, never mind. It does not make you wonder why Trevor Pena left. We know exactly why Trevor Pena left. He wanted $2 million.
Trevor Pena wants lots of money.
Yeah, that was probably the best response I've ever seen. He goes, "You want $2 million? That's that cat over in Ohio. Like, that's not you." I mean, that's just calling a spade a spade. You need coaches that are going to tell these guys the truth. And if they don't want to believe them, they can go find the truth somewhere else. Because there's no way that Penn State gave him $2 million. Zero.
No way. I can't imagine anybody did. I'm sure he got a nice little bag. But there's no way that he is a – now, granted, I don't know what Jeremiah Smith makes. But I think the baseline is probably Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams. They are probably the two highest NIL paid wide receivers in my
and I've never heard
my
of
opinion.
Either of them. Did you know Ryan Williams played most of the season last year at 17 years old?
I did not know that he has recently turned 18.
Yeah, he turned 18. Yeah, think about that.
Did you know Kyler Murray was drafted by the A's?
I did.
And did you know that Bo Nix's brother was Tej Johnson?
I did. I also know Bo Nix's brother played for Clemson and just transferred to the Gamecocks of Jacksonville State.
Really?
Yep. Caleb Nix.
Did not know that one.
Yeah. See, hey,
I do know that Tez Johnson was considered his brother, though.
What a fun fact off we just had.
Oh yeah, fun fact.
We just fun fact off all over this podcast. So what a Wednesday morning, you're going to open up your phone, you're going to go on Spotify, and you're going to listen to a fun fact off about 20 minutes in.
And somebody's going to comment, be like, "Why didn't you do this fun fact?" Because I didn't think of it. That's exactly why I didn't do it.
You know another fun fact is
that Arik Gilbert still somehow playing football. Arik Gilbert is somehow playing football still. Arik Gilbert has the most ridiculous timeline I've ever read.
This isn't funny, so I'm going to say no disrespect.
Yes, it is.
I'm going to say no disrespect. So that means you cannot say that I was being disrespectful when I say this. Okay, so I have immunity from disrespect.
Okay,
that's how it works. How is Arik Gilbert going to get arrested this time?
Oh my god! I mean,
I said no disrespect.
I mean, he's done so many stupid things. The fact that he robbed a liquor store, on camera, I don't know how he's even out, how he's not in jail.
Savannah State.
It was on camera. It was all over the internet.
Did he say sorry?
Probably.
Okay.
Did he mean it though? Probably not.
Did he mean to steal?
Here's the timeline for Arik Gilbert. 2019, he is the #1 tight end recruit in the country, and he commits to LSU. He's considered one of the best tight end prospects of all time when he's coming out of high school because of how athletic he is, his size, his build, his strength, everything. So in 2020, he opts out of LSU season after 8 games. 2021, he transfers to Georgia but does not play. 2022, he has 2 catches all season for Georgia. 2023, he transfers to Nebraska and he's arrested for robbing a liquor store. 2024, he's out of football. And 2025, he transfers to FCS Savannah State.
What a ride. What a ride. They're going to make a movie about this one day. Arik Gilbert, I hope you cleaned yourself up. In all seriousness, I hope you're able to bounce back and maybe revive an NFL career, but make sure you make good choices. Make sure you make good choices.
I just want him to go out and play a season and just live life.
I will
safely.
Say, at least he's somewhere. At least he's somewhere that's less populous than Lincoln, Nebraska. You can't really get in trouble in Savannah, Georgia. There's not much to do. There's a lot less to do than in Lincoln, Nebraska. So that should help him out.
Yeah, that definitely is exactly how that works. That's exactly how. I mean, I think it's better having less publicity, less eyes on you for sure. It's not like people are going to be covering Savannah State football games to hopefully.
Now they are.
No, they're not. Nobody's going to be covering Arik Gilbert at Savannah State. Absolutely nobody's going to do that.
I can't wait he's the steal of the transfer portal. No.
As Savannah State wins their 4th game in the season, and it's November. Okay,
let's jump into Big Ten. Let's
talk about Big Ten. Let's talk about Big Ten. Contenders, pretenders, sleepers, and dumpster fires. You've been here the last couple of weeks. You know what we're going through. Contenders, pretenders, dumpster fires, and sleepers. Obviously, we're starting with the contenders. There are 2 very obvious contenders here. Which one would you like to take?
Purdue.
Okay.
You take the one I know you want to take, and I'll take the other one.
Okay, so I'm going to take Penn State. No, obviously. All right. I mean, Ohio State, Penn State. Those are the 2 obvious ones. Their win totals are set at 10.5. The whole reason their win total set at 10.5, it might even be set higher for Ohio State if they didn't have Texas on the schedule. It might be. I'm almost surprised that it's not set at 11.5 for both of them, thinking that they only lose 1 game, and it might be 2. One loses to each other, and the other one loses to Oregon or Texas.
Well, they want people to actually make the bet.
That's true. I mean, Ohio State's a very easy one. They've got arguably the 2 best players in the country. I was just watching a clip from Split Zone Duo that are people too high on Ohio State right now, and I think there is a chance of that. When you talk about everything they're replacing, obviously, they just went through what Split Zone Duo called it was the last dance mantra. The last couple of years, Michigan went through it. Everybody comes back, they win a national championship, they fall off the face of the earth. LSU in 2019, they had an absolute loaded roster, sent $1 billion guys to the NFL, fall off the face of the earth next year.
But there's a big difference between Michigan and Ohio State in their run. And let me tell you why. So, number one,
Ohio State still has probably the 2 best players in the country with Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith.
That helps. But Michigan did too with Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, Colston Loveland, Will Johnson. They still had
a lot. Johnson got injured, but yeah.
But turn it around. Michigan was bringing baggage with them. So these guys are returning, but they brought baggage with them. Obviously, that whatever you want to do with it, whatever you think happened, yada, yada, yada. The second thing, too, their coach left. So there's no stability in the culture anymore. Now, William, they replaced him with Sharon Moore, who's been there with Jim Harbaugh for a long time. This is different. It's completely different. So I want to say that, too. I want to preface that, did Ohio State lose 14 guys to the draft? Yes, they did. Are they still returning the 3 best players and Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Smith? 2 best players. 2 best players. I don't know where I got 3 from. But you have
3. I don't know who we're talking about, but I'm willing to take it.
You have Edric Houston who's going to be playing. You're covering Ohio State. I just got excited. I'm sorry.
So the offensive line is going to be the biggest question mark because you lose both tackles. Donovan Jackson on the left side, and they also lost Josh Simmons, but they lost him earlier in the year. You lose 3 starters on the offensive line, but it ended up being 2 towards the end of the year. They bring in 2 guys from the portal. Philip Daniels actually brought in a 3rd, but I don't think he's going to play. Ethan Owenaya, I believe, is expected to be the left tackle. He comes over from Rice. Philip Daniels might be the right tackle. He's out from Minnesota. He might rotate. I was reading today. He might rotate in a little bit. But the offensive line, the interior, should basically be set. The questions go to then the quarterback position. Is Julian Sain or Lincoln Keenholtz going to start? That's going to be a quarterback battle that's going to get a ton of attention this fall, especially with the first game matchup against Texas. The running back position, it doesn't matter who's back there. It's not going to be as good as last year. There's no way to put that. You don't just come back with Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins.
Yes, you do. You have Bo Jackson on your roster.
Okay, that actually is like the best name ever. And I believe, I want to say his real name is actually even better. I want to say his real name makes him actually even better. I forget what it is. I can't find it.
All right, you keep going. I'll see if I can find it.
I cannot find it, but I remember it's Lamar Bo Jackson. Lamar Bo Jackson. Lamar Jackson or Bo Jackson, depending on how you want to call it. So obviously you got the wide receivers. The defense is going to be a question mark. The whole defensive line, there's going to be some depth questions there, but I mean, all 4 of them were drafted. Secondary, I think they'll be fine. Linebackers, I think, again, you'll be fine. They've, they're rotation guys, but there's just so many questions with, you hear me say, I think. Last year, there was certainty with that of you have Jack Sawyer, you have JT Tuimoloau, you've got Emeka Ibuka. Carnell Tate, Brandon Inniss, should be good. Carnell Tate, played well last year. Brandon Inniss played well in spot. Emeka Ibuka was just reliability. You knew he doesn't drop the ball. He never dropped the ball. If Ibuka was anywhere near the ball, he was catching it. Jeremiah Smith, there's going to be way more attention on him next year. I think last year, there was a little bit of, he's just a freshman. He's not that, he's good, but he's not that good. Even from opposing quarterbacks this year, it's all right. You saw what Texas did. They took him away. They're we're not going to play this game. So obviously, I think Ohio State, reigning national champion, deserved to be one of the favorites for this year. There's no reason they shouldn't be, but I think there's a lot of question marks with this team that you're going to learn real fast when they play Texas in week 1 what holes they're going to be. Luckily for them, they found out this past year you can lose 2 games and you'll be fine to make the playoffs.
That's right, even to your rival.
Exactly.
Too soon.
Although don't tell them. They say it's null and void because if you lose your rival, it's null and void.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, I would say that too if I lost to. Anyway, The other shared contender is obviously Penn State, the Fighting James Franklins. And they're similar to Ohio State in the sense that they're returning a lot of talent. Nicholas Singleton, Katron Allen, both could have gone to the draft, didn't. That defense is going to be just dirty like it normally is. Dennis Sutton is still there. Zane Durant's still there. Tony Rojas is still there. Dominic DeLuca is still there. I mean, they just got dogs. But the biggest thing they did, they went and got Trevor Pena from Syracuse. I don't know if he's announced his commitment, but I'm pretty sure.
I think he officially announced it finally. And
then Kyron Hudson, who I think got a little like he started off hot for USC last year. He's a pretty big guy. Made some acrobatic catches in that LSU game, USC LSU game. I think he has a really good shot. They're going all in for Drew Aller. And they're saying, Drew.
They also brought in Devontae Ross from, I forget which G5 program it was, but he was a 1,000-yard receiver at a G5 program last year.
Yeah, he's a dog. I want to say it was Toledo, but it was Troy. And then Luke Reynolds. So people forget that Luke Reynolds is actually a pretty damn good, was a really good tight end prospect coming out of high school last year. Obviously, he sat behind Tyler Warren, but he played some last year. They didn't put a red shirt on him. So, I don't know. I think this is a very, very complete roster. They're losing. Oh my gosh, Tom Allen, the defensive coordinator, obviously went to Clemson, and I'm forgetting who they replaced him with. But
how they replaced him with arguably the best defensive coordinator in the country, Jim Knowles.
Jim Knowles. Oh yeah, duh. Oh my gosh, why did I just draw a blank on that? That was like the hottest topic.
They might have the best coordinator duo in the country right now. Not that Tom Allen isn't bad. Like Tom Allen's a really good coordinator, but Jim Knowles was just viewed as the best defensive coordinator in the country.
Best.
They just won the national championship and Penn State plucked him. That was the other thing with Ohio State. Matt Patricia is going to be the defensive coordinator while Brian Hartline is going to be the offensive coordinator. Real quick.
So, yeah, that is true. That is a lot of loss of continuity. Like you don't know what that play calling is going to look like.
Exactly. I expect to air it out. Brian Hartline's going to make sure his guys get the ball. But anyways.
Yeah,
Jim Knowles is the defensive coordinator for Penn State.
Yeah, and I honestly this is super early, but just to go ahead and give you a sneak peek into our Big Ten preview, that's going to be a lot closer to the start of football season. Penn State is going to be my favorite to win the Big Ten. And usually I'm cautious to say that because Penn State's. I mean, you can get mad at me if you want, but that's just what happens. They find a way to piss down their leg against Ohio State and against another good team in the Big Ten, whoever it is that year, whether it be Michigan State when Michigan State was at their highest, Michigan, whoever, Wisconsin, they find a way to piss down their leg. I don't think that happens this year. I'm really, really high on Drew Aller and what he can do. You go back to you see glimpses of it, especially in the playoffs. You see glimpses of what he can do. And, man, I just think this Penn State football team is going to be. I've been telling everybody I can't wait to see them in the Orange Bowl, Clemson, Penn State in the Orange Bowl.
I have a potential. I don't know if this is a hot take. This probably is not a hot take.
Also, I want to say this real quick too before you say that, Jake. Listen to this freaking schedule: Nevada, FIU, Villanova, Oregon. Which is a tough game, but it's at home. UCLA, Northwestern, Iowa. Iowa's gonna be tougher than people think. Bye week. Ohio State at Ohio State. Can James Franklin get that monkey off his back? I don't know. Indiana. Sneak peek. No spoilers, but I think Indiana's going to take a step back. They are preseason ranked 17th, but I think they're going to take a step back. Michigan State, Nebraska. Most of those teams were boo-boo last year. They're playing 3 teams that were ranked, but I still think they have 3 tough games on their schedule this year. That's Oregon, Iowa, and Ohio State.
Here's my hot take. I don't think James Franklin needs to get the monkey off his back to win it. I really don't think he doesn't need to beat Ohio State. Because Ryan Day couldn't beat Michigan, and he won the national championship.
I disagree. Ryan Day has beaten Michigan. James Franklin beat Ohio State?
Yeah, he beat them. He beat him once.
Right. So, but I think at this point it's so in his head that I think
the same thing with Ryan Day. Ryan Day ran the ball at Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham for 3 hours.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good point.
He ran it right at the 2 top 20 picks. right at him and said, "I'm going to try to beat you with my interior offensive line." And you know what? He didn't beat him. He lost him. He got
the
his
one
ass
remaining strength on that defense, and
he
you
got his
wanted to
ass
attack
whooped.
it. Yeah,
All
that was a
do
bad
is do
idea.
anything but run it up the middle, and he ran it like 20 something times up the middle. And so I don't think that James Franklin needs to essentially beat Ohio State to find the success. I think that he just needs it. Since the game's in Columbus, it makes it a lot harder. It makes it a lot harder when it's in Columbus compared to when it's in State College.
But this is the year to beat them. You got Julian saying that's coming in.
But it's also like November. It's like a weekend in November. It's not like the first game when it's Texas, and Texas is getting Julian saying or Lincoln Keenholz's very first start, first real play time. Keenholz played in the Cotton Bowl 2 years ago when they didn't even open the offensive book up to him. The playbook had like 4 plays in it for Lincoln Keenholz. Yeah. Now it's a year and a half later. One of them is making their first start against Texas at home. Again, they get Penn State at home. It's probably going to be a noon game because of Big Ten, the way they work. I don't think James Franklin needs to necessarily beat Ohio State. I mean, I think they go 11-1, and I think they make the Big Ten championship game pretty easily.
He needs to beat Ohio State or Oregon. I think he needs
that
to
I agree with.
Those two things.
I agree with. He has to be one of them.
Yeah, I think their best shot is to win the Big. If they win the Big Ten, I think they're going to have a really good shot to go all the way until they play Clemson. Not biased.
Because James Franklin gets a lot of hate for not being able to win the big games, and I'm sorry, but beating SMU and beating Boise State, while our big games, do not to me classify as like the big games.
Right. Well, and you look at it too, like if you really want to be if you want to attack it, be nitpicky, SMU and Boise State both beat themselves and kept Penn State in the game long enough for Penn State.
I think Penn State beat SMU. I think Kevin Jennings hurt himself a lot, but Penn State whooped him pretty good.
After the first half, I would agree with you. I mean, because they just jumped on them right where the momentum. I think the first quarter, if SMU scores on one of those 2 tries, it's a whole different game. And then you look at Boise State too.
Both of those games, Boise State and SMU had a chance to score on their opening drive, and they failed because of Boise State missed a field goal, and Kevin Jennings missed a wide open receiver in the end zone.
Yeah, multiple times in that game.
I still think Kevin Jennings would have lost that game. I think Penn State's defense was too much, but I think it would have just been closer.
I agree. I think Penn State needs to prove that they can do it on a national scale against a national audience, against a big-time team who's already proven they can do it. I mean, you last year in the Big Ten, you had James Franklin, Dan Lanning, and Ryan Day who couldn't win the big one. Ryan Day has gotten that monkey off his back. Oregon has not. Penn State has not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there has to be another team that emerges. And
Oregon is getting really close. Oregon wins the Big Ten last year. One other thing about Penn State before I move on, because I want to talk about Oregon, was so the big games they won, SMU and Boise State. Like, I know what Boise State was, and I know what Ashton Genty was, and you beat them, but they're still a Group of 5 program. They are still a Group of 5 program. You are expected to beat them. That is not one where people were coming in actually expecting Boise State to win. People wanted to see Boise State.
Let's be honest, SMU was still a Group of 5 program. This was their first year.
They are 1 year removed from being a Group of 5 program. 1 year removed from being a Group of 5 program. So I'm miss me with this that he can win big games because he beat Boise State, SMU. If you want to be at the highest level, start beating the top 10 Big Ten teams. And right now, I don't even count that as Michigan, but I need to see you beat Oregon or Ohio State, and I need you to do it this year. Because if you don't do it this year, when is it for Penn State? When's it going to happen? I don't think it happens anytime soon. I think that if they don't win either of these games, like, they should probably still make the playoff. Problem is the schedule is not very good as of right now. Maybe a couple teams pop up, maybe Iowa or Indiana pop up, but it is not that good. And there's a chance they could miss just because of those 2 games. Yeah. Depending how it all plays out and depending how everything is. But if they lose both those games and lose in the first round of the playoff, like, James Franklin is going to be able to stay as long as he wants, but the fan base is going to start saying, if you want to look around, we're not going to stop you.
Yeah. Yeah, please actually look around.
Let's the other team, Oregon is interesting to me. And I think they're going to be good once again. They still have a ton of guys on the defense, and Dan Lanning knows how to use the portal for the right guys. They bring in Isaiah World, who, if you've not seen what he looks like the whole world. Like, that is a massive human being. I forget what his exact measurements are. Pulling them up right now, but let's see what Oregon has him listed as. Oh, they don't have his measurements on here. Fine. We'll go to 247, see what they say he's listed as.
You know who else they got in who's a real loyal guy who they can count on and that will stay there and be there for the long haul?
Who?
Bear Alexander.
It's a count of eligibility at this point. Isaiah World is 6'8", 312 pounds.
Good gracious.
That is a mountain.
No, it's a world.
It's a good thing that Dylan Gabriel's not behind him because he wouldn't be able to see over him.
How tall is Johntay Moore? Johntay Moore 6'3". That's good.
Johntay Moore intrigues me because Johntay Moore is a former 5-star quarterback, went to UCLA for a year, then transferred and willingly decided to sit behind Dylan Gabriel for a year and get better and learn. Johntay Moore was sought after by basically every program in the country and chose to go to UCLA for that cash.
He wasn't a take it. He wasn't a take it Clemson.
Yeah, because you guys didn't have enough cash. That's the reason why you didn't have enough cash.
He did start his first year at UCLA.
Yeah, he was a starter. He started and then willingly decided to become a backup at Oregon behind Gabriel instead of trying to go find a starting spot. I guarantee somebody would have basically guaranteed him a starting spot. But there's still plenty of talent over on the offensive side of the ball at Oregon. Gary Bryant Jr. is somehow still playing football. I thought that he ran out of eligibility like 2 years ago, but here we are. And Evan Stewart had a really big year. And then they also bring in 5-star DeCorian Moore, who I'm sure is going to play this year. They're hoping that he's going to be, not necessarily Jeremiah Smith, but an instant playmaker for them.
DeCorian Moore is a freak. And then you got Malik Benson out of Florida State, who's played at 900 colleges as well. But he's moved every time. He's leveled up.
I think that the Oregon defense is going to be intriguing. Bear Alexander said he is enjoying football again.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know what that means, but he's enjoying football. Dylan Thieneman, he's a transfer from Purdue. People are already talking about him being a first-round pick because he was all-conference safety at Purdue.
He's a stud. That's not fair to Purdue. Purdue lost their 2 best players on defense. The only 2 players they had, really, and Will Helt and Dylan Thieneman.
And then they lost their all-conference tight end to Ohio State.
Yeah, it's like, what are you going to do?
They're just getting picked apart by every major program. I think the big thing for Oregon this year is the defense has to improve. You saw in some of their big games, they got picked apart. I mean, Penn State beat them, the first game against Ohio State, Ohio State moved the ball.
Well, Penn State lost to them, but they scored a lot of points on them.
Penn State moved the ball pretty well. And
yeah.
they hit on some pretty big plays. I think a guy like Thieneman is going to help with that. They're starting to recruit better, but obviously you're not going to play defense with a bunch of freshmen. I think some of these guys will end up playing, but the big thing is the defense really has to take a step forward because the offense is probably going to take a step back just a little bit. I mean, Gabriel's experience. Gabriel's experience is worth a lot.
Yeah, but I think Johntay Moore has better attribute. I mean, I think he's a better.
I would agree with that.
Quarterback all around, and I don't know. I guess we don't know. I mean, the 1 year Johntay Moore started, he was a true freshman, so take that with a grain of salt. He had a 53%.
True freshman for Chip Kelly. Think about that. How weird that is.
Yeah, he had a 53 or 54% completion percentage at UCLA, and that's bad. That's really bad. Now, there's a lot of factors that you have to take into place. You're playing at UCLA. Oh, yeah. What's your talent level? You're a true freshman. You're trying to learn Chip Kelly's offense as a true freshman. That's a lot. So I don't know. But now he's been in the same system.
Last year he only threw 8 passes. So yeah, you can tell they didn't need him. And when he came in, he probably was basically just – fun fact, he threw a pass against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Didn't know that. But other than that, I mean, he only played against Washington, Michigan State, and Oregon State. and completed every other pass except his one in the Rose Bowl. Fun fact.
They had him. They have Oregon at 10.5 wins, and I think I would take the under.
Oregon this year. I mean, that game at Penn State is going to be very tough.
Well, that's when we'll find out who Oregon is.
That game is going to be very, very tough. And for some reason, I don't have their schedule in front of me. Can you read off their schedule?
Yeah. So week 1, they're playing Montana State, the Bobcats.
Yeah, it's a win.
And they got Oklahoma State in Autzen.
Yeah, it's a win.
So, yeah, Northwestern at Northwestern.
So that's a win.
Yeah.
Is it? But where is it? Is it possibly
at Northwestern
Field? Is it?
Oh yeah, it's probably at Wrigley Field. Oregon State.
That's a win
at Autzen. Then they go to Penn State for another. So
I'll call that a toss up.
Yeah, they got bye week Indiana at Autzen.
Probably
they go to Piscataway, play Rutgers.
Ooh, scary, but that's a win.
They got Wisconsin at home.
Could be tricky, but probably a win.
They have a bye week. They go to Iowa.
That could be a tricky one. I could see Iowa taking them off there.
I think they lose that one. They got Minnesota at home, USC at home, and then they go to Washington. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to think about Washington. I think USC could be tricky
either.
Yeah. So, and I'm forgetting who's the quarterback that transferred to USC.
They Jaden Maeva.
That's what I'm thinking of. He didn't transfer. I'm thinking of Jaden Maeva.
Yeah, I don't know if they brought in anybody else. I think
I'm not used to Lincoln Riley not having a transfer quarterback.
I'm not used to them not just starting a new quarterback every year because that's what it feels like USC's been doing.
Yeah. Well, they are. Jaden Maeva. I mean, I guess he started later in the season, but he didn't enter the year as a starter.
Miller Moss was there, and then he left.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our pretenders.
I got Michigan and Indiana, but I want to highlight more on Indiana. I think people are very high on Indiana, and I don't think there's a reason to. I think Curtis Rourke did a lot for that team last year that people don't realize.
Curtis Rourke went undrafted, and Graham Mertz got drafted.
Yeah, that's heinous. That is a crime. But guys, I'm not on the Fernando Mendoza train. I'm not. I wasn't pleased with what he did at Cal. I thought he was a one-trick pony. I think he's more of a runner than he is a passer. His brother's there, Alberto Mendoza, which is pretty funny. But I don't know. Indiana does not do it for me. I mean, you're replacing your entire offensive line except for 2 guys. So 3 guys, 2 out of 3 guys you keep. Pat Coogan is going to be phenomenal, the Notre Dame transfer.
That's a really good one. Holden Stays coming over from Tennessee, I think could be a good play there too.
Yeah,
that's a good tight end.
Kalen Black's pretty good. They're running back. I don't believe in Fernando Mendoza, and I don't think people realized how good Curtis Rourke is or was, and you're going to find that out this year when you have Mendoza leading the charge. I mean, Mendoza was enough for Cal. I mean, he kept him in games. He kept him against in the game against Miami. He completed 69% of his passes last year, so he's a better passer maybe than I think. Maybe it was a talent issue over at Cal. Man, he doesn't do it for me.
They also avoided all of the good teams in the Big Ten last year. Other than Ohio State, they did not play Oregon. They did not play Penn State. They did not play Illinois. They did not play USC. They did not play Michigan. Like, they did not play anybody with a pulse
except for
until Ohio State. And we talked about it, but they were beating teams thoroughly. But this year, when you have Illinois, Iowa, and Oregon in back-to-back weeks, that is not going to be an easy test.
There is a bye week. There is a bye week between Iowa and Oregon. But you're right.
But still, in 3 out of 4 weeks, you're playing Illinois, Iowa, and Oregon.
Right.
And then you still have Penn State and Wisconsin on the back end there.
Yeah. So I'm not sold. They have Indiana. They being FanDuel has Indiana at 8.5 wins. I would hammer the under.
I was going to say, I feel like 8-4 because, you've got a couple other in here. Maryland. I mean, you just never know what you're going to get with Maryland. Michigan State. Yeah, I could see Jonathan Smith taking a step up this year. That one of these other teams could knock them off, meaning they have to basically go 4-1 in these,
Right.
big games,
And
and
let
I
me tell
don't
you
see
what's
that happening.
me neither. And let me tell you what's
Or
going to happen.
1-4, I guess technically is what they do. I think they're going to lose. They're going to lose a lot of them,
And they're going to start off the season 3-0 because they got Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State. They're going to start off the season 3-0, and people are like, "Ooh, Indiana's back! Oh, Kurt Signetti!" Blah, 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 blah. Then
especially when they
go,
drop 70 points on Kennesaw State.
Right, and Fernando Mendoza, he's the truth. Williams, suck our Hoosiers. Then they're going to go and play Illinois and get freaking boat raced. They are going to get boat raced by Illinois. Illinois'
is
defense.
a good team.
Illinois is a solid team. Illinois is beyond a solid team. I have them, no spoilers, but I have them as my sleeper. And I almost just put them as a contender, just straight up just put them as a contender. They're last year's Indiana. They're coming off of I'll get into them in a second. I'm not high on Indiana. I'm not sold on them. Similar to Michigan. Michigan's losing a lot. They had already lost a lot. I don't think they're a very good football team. You're starting a true freshman. It's going to be rough.
I think Indiana is going to take a step back, but I think they're still going to be a good team. I think Kurt Signetti is a good coach. I think they're still going to make a bowl game. I don't think they're going to take a step back where all of a sudden like 5 wins.
I think 8 wins is their ceiling.
I would agree. I think 8-4, maybe they'll be ranked for a decent portion of the season, and maybe they pull off an upset. Maybe they, do beat Iowa. Maybe they.
Ready? Oh, you did. Okay.
For Michigan, the big thing here, for me at least, when I look at this, is like they lost multiple first-round picks off this team. They lost Colston Loveland. They lost, both the defensive tackles, Grant and, Mason Graham. And then that's not even talking about losing Kalel Mullins, talking about losing, Donovan Edwards, even if he kind of was a waste of space last year.
Which was absurd. That's insane.
The fall off needs to be studied about him. Will Johnson, I know he only played a couple games, but still, he's out of the room. And, they have a new offensive coordinator, I believe, this year coming in. And they're expected to start a true freshman. And then in week 2, they're going to go to Oklahoma, who is now being viewed as like a potential like dark horse in the SEC with the amount of players they brought in.
They're going to get just molly-whopped in that game. But other than that, it's a pretty decent schedule. I mean, USC is tough. You go to because you have to go there. And then you don't really play anybody until Ohio State.
So they might sleepwalk their way into 9 wins.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not sold. I mean, going to Nebraska as a true freshman is going to be tough. You might lose a lot of confidence getting your bell rung at Oklahoma when you go to Gaylord up in Norman.
Do you think maybe they save him for after Oklahoma? I mean, they don't think that they're going to be national championship contenders this year. There's no way they look at this roster and go, yep, we're going to compete for a national championship.
But if they do that, then they're telling their players that too. And you don't tell your players that.
No, you just say, hey, you start Mikey Keene or Davis Warren. You let Davis Warren run it back out there. You brought in Mikey Keene from Fresno State. And you let it run out there, and then you do hey, we're going to do this. And then after you get your bell rung by Oklahoma, you go, all right, hey, that was rough. So we're gonna give Bryce Underwood a shot. I mean, they played 3 quarterbacks last year. They
That's
let
true,
Alex
but
Borgi start a game.
if you're at practice and you see Bryce Underwood doing what Bryce Underwood does, and you've seen what Davis Warren does, I think it would be too obvious if to not start Bryce Underwood and think that the coaches aren't mailing in the season. So I don't think they'll do it. I really don't. But I don't think
they
that's
will
far
either. But
fetched.
I don't think they'll do it. But
He might have
I
a
think
hamstring injury against Oklahoma.
yeah, or they might use him. I could also see them starting it where they do like limited packages for Bryce Underwood of like, hey guys, I know what we see in practice, but like this is a different game than high school. We don't want to just throw him to the wolves at the same time. I think that's the way you kind of phrase it to some of your leadership, your captains of we can't just let him go out there in week 2 and just destroy his confidence. Like, we've got 3 to 4 years with this kid. We got to make sure that like we don't lose him in week 2.
Yeah, I do like the Justice Haynes pickup at running backs. I mean,
I do too,
and they'll have a good defense.
Yeah, they're destined to always have a pretty good defense. Offensive line seems to be the concern with most Michigan fans this year. Is what are they going to have on the offensive line?
Yeah, it's pretty young. They got two seniors, and then the rest are sophomores and freshmen. But let's jump into these sleepers.
Sleepers. I'll let you go first.
Okay. I already talked about Illinois, so I'll just kind of finish that thought. They're returning 10 of 11 starters on offense, which is amazing. Luke Altmaier being the straw that stirs the drink, the quarterback there. And their defense has just been phenomenal under DC Aaron Henry. DC meaning defensive coordinator. That's not his name. So I think they're a really well-coached team. They play very technically sound. And then coming back with a quarterback who had a lot of momentum going into the end of the season. They beat South Carolina in a bowl game in a very emotional, chippy bowl game. So I think Illinois has a really good shot. But my other sleeper is Iowa. And
you do know Josh McCray transferred to Georgia, right?
Yes, I do. But I still think Illinois is going to be phenomenal. I also love Iowa this year because you go from having the pasty white boy running back who can barely move to Mark Gronkowski out of South Dakota State, who's got some wheels, who's got some toughness, who plays with some grit. He is an offensive lineman that just happens to have a quarterback's body and can throw the football. I think he's going to be phenomenal for Iowa. I think he's going to give them a little wrinkle in that offense that they haven't had in a while. They haven't had a offense in a long time, so a wrinkle in offense is going to be something that they've never seen over there in Iowa. So I think he's going to bring a part of them that a lot of teams hasn't seen, and then their defense is just always great. When has Iowa not had a good defense?
Phil Parker is probably, if Jim Knowles is the best defensive coordinator, Phil Parker's top 5 for sure.
Yeah, he's 3 behind Tom Allen.
Because he always has a good defense. And the thing is, he doesn't need superstars to have a top tier defense. They just develop dudes out there.
Yeah.
If I ever have a kid who wants to go play defense at Iowa under Phil Parker, granted, Phil Parker will probably be long retired by the time my kids can play in college. Like, I would say go for it. But Phil Parker will be retired because he'll be like 90 years old at that point.
And they won't get in trouble because what do you do in Iowa? What are they in Ames? No, they're not in Ames. Where are they?
They're in Iowa City, Iowa. Nice city, actually. Yeah. Been there once. Would recommend going to a football game in Iowa City, Iowa again. I only have one sleeper on mine. I have Wisconsin because I like the pickup of Billy Edwards. I did not like Tyler Van Dyke coming in. I did not really think that was going to work out great, but I do like the idea of Billy Edwards coming in. I don't think he's going to be a superstar by any means, but I don't think they need him to be. They're bringing over Jeff Grimes, the offensive coordinator from Kansas, and they're going back to a ground and pound style offense. They tried to go with this air raid with Phil Longo. It didn't work. Wisconsin does not have the offense of skill players to run that. You had to do a full overhaul, and Luke Fickell just didn't really do that. They need to go back to their roots of what made Wisconsin football good over the last 2 decades, and that is looking at the running backs like Melvin Gordon and Jonathan Taylor and Monty Ball and James White and John Clay, and just big physical running backs and 340-pound offensive linemen that just move mountains.
People movers.
And that's what they're going back to.
I love it.
Their running backs don't really jump off the table. It's a lot of inexperienced guys, but I think Luke Fickell is going to find a way. I mean, he's a Big Ten guy. Cincinnati took them to the playoffs. Took them to the playoffs when there were only 4 teams. Luke Fickell, I still believe, is a good coach. I don't really know why he got an extension this past year, but he did.
Because
just everybody gets extensions.
Just because.
I really think Luke Fickell should be on the hot seat right now, but Wisconsin's win total is set at 5.5. I mean, I think that Wisconsin is going to be a better team than 5.5 wins this year. So, when I go and I look at their schedule, they have Miami, Ohio, Middle Tennessee. Those 2 should be wins. They're going to lose to Alabama. They're just going to lose to Alabama. There's nothing that's going to stop that. They're just going to lose to Alabama. You've got Maryland, Michigan, which I think are both very winnable games. Iowa at home could be tough. You get Ohio State at home, nonetheless. I think that's going to be tough. They'll probably lose. You get that back-to-back with Oregon. 2 very tough games right in the middle of your schedule. Washington, Indiana, Illinois, Minnesota. I look at the schedule, and I think that there's 7 or 8 wins for sure.
Yeah.
I think the guaranteed losses are Alabama, Ohio State, and Oregon. But you never know. Maybe they upset one of them. I don't think it'll happen. But maybe, never know. Maybe you'll upset them. But I think they could beat Indiana. I think they can beat a Washington. I think you can beat a Michigan. I think they can beat an Iowa.
Crazier things have happened.
Illinois at home at the end of the season, depending on how their season goes, it could be a big game, or maybe Illinois, it feels like they're lost for the year. I think that 5.5, I would take the over on Wisconsin this year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
All right, dumpster fires.
I got 2, and I'll be quick with them. Purdue is one of my dumpster fires. I think they're listed at 3.5 wins by FanDuel right now. Jake, you want to guess how many projected starters were Boilermakers last year? So they were on the roster last year.
I don't know, like 4?
3. The answer is 3.
Didn't they? Who'd they bring in as their coach? They brought in what's his face from UNLV?
Barry Odom from
Odom,
which is a good move.
I think it's a good hire. I don't know why Barry Odom took the Purdue
Right.
job. I think Purdue is like one of the toughest jobs. There's a reason why Jeff Brown left Purdue to go to Louisville.
Right.
Purdue just needs to air the ball out. They just need to go with the Drew Brees, Kyle Orton style of like, we're just going to throw the ball, 37 times a game, maybe run it a couple times, see what happens.
It's funny you say that because they went and got Malachi Singleton, the quarterback from Arkansas. So not the best thrower. So
they're going to run the speed option all day.
Yeah. So we're going to see what happens. They're listed at 3.5 wins. I think that's perfect. I don't think them winning 3 games would be out of the realm of possibilities. And then my other dumpster fire would be Northwestern. So, which I actually might just want to keep only Purdue. And the only reason I say that is because Northwestern got some guys. I mean, they got Preston Stone out of SMU, who completely forgot how to play football last year, and we thought SMU was dead. And then all of a sudden they put Kevin Jennings in and they revived. But we've seen Preston Stone.
Shout out to Preston Stone for staying with SMU to the playoffs too.
Yeah.
Said he was entering the portal, but said, I'm going to be the backup.
Right. So good guy. I mean, they got Yanni Karlaftis, which is George Karlaftis' brother who plays for the Chiefs. They've got some dudes on Northwestern. I like Preston Stone. I don't like who he throws to. So they're also my dumpster fire. Northwestern is another very hard place to win and to play, especially when they're playing like in Wrigley Field for multiple games. The academics is just extremely difficult. I have UCLA. I know they just got Nico, but this just feels like it's going to be almost like a weird, tough situation that if things aren't going his way, that dad's going to get involved. And UCLA just doesn't have a lot of talent around them right now. Like UCLA was not good last year. Is UCLA addicted to quarterbacks with overbearing dads? Because wasn't it DTR?
Yeah,
his
DTR.
dad like?
I don't remember much about DTR, but I know there was a weird situation with him.
His dad hated Chip Kelly.
UCLA did win 5 games last year. Good for them. 2 of them being Hawaii and Fresno State, and then the other ones being Rutgers, Nebraska, and Iowa. But they really weren't that good of a team last year. Defense played well for the most part. The defense kind of kept them in games whenever they were able to. But overall, this was just not a really good team, and the schedule is not going to be super favorable to them this year.
So what you're saying is Nico doesn't move the needle for you?
No. They start off the season with Utah, which is not an easy game. UNLV, who was really good last year. Now, granted, Barry Odom is that, Purdue now, but they bring in Dan Mullen, and they brought it. Alex Orji might be the quarterback, honestly, which could be very, very interesting, actually. Penn State, Indiana, Ohio State, Washington, USC are all teams that I expect to be better. We didn't talk about Washington really, but I think Washington's going to be a solid middle of the pack team this year.
Yeah, I'm not sold on Washington, but I don't think they'll be bad.
No, I think Washington is going to be fine.
I like Jed Fish too much. Maybe that's a me problem.
I don't like Jed Fish a ton. I think he's okay. But I just am not sold on UCLA. I think they're going to win like 4 games. I think it's going to be a solid 1.5. I don't think they're going to come close to that 5 wins, 5.5. I think we're going to be mid-November, and they're going to be out of reach for that. It wouldn't shock me if they only win 3. Nico doesn't have the weapons out there that he's going to have that he had at Tennessee. It's not a better pro-ready offense, no matter what he wants to say. No matter what he wants to say, it is not. All right. Last week we did you blind ranked 10 quarterbacks. This week, you're going to blind rank 10 running backs. Now, these are all running backs from the past, 15 years or so. I think the oldest one is like 2010. But I want to see how you rank these, because I think these are some studs in here. Like, I don't look at any of these and go like, oh God, like that guy's not that good. So we're going to start with the first one here. And we're going to
just to remind people, like when I put these ranks, like, so he's going to name a name. I cannot move him once I put him in a slot.
Yep.
So if I say Dalvin Cook is 5th, 5 is taken. I cannot put anyone else at 5.
Yep. So last week was pretty good. I thought overall, pretty solid list.
I think 1 and 2 maybe should have been swapped, but other than that, we're good.
All right. So we're going to go Dalvin Cook here.
Dalvin Cook. If it weren't for injuries, man, he'd have been.
He was really good at Florida State.
You know what? Shout out Dalvin Cook. Let's put him at 4.
Dalvin Cook. That was his number, right? That's why you're saying it? All right. Let's go Melvin Gordon.
Ooh.
Melvin Gordon famously ran for 400 yards in 3 quarters just to have Samaje Perine break it the next week.
Yeah, Wisconsin's finest. Put Melvin Gordon at. I like Dalvin Cook more than. I'll put him at 5 for me, please.
Okay. You're really unsure what's coming next.
Yeah.
Let's go. This guy I think will be close to the top here, if not at the top. We'll go Saquon Barkley.
Let's put him at 2.
So I feel like if you put him below Melvin Gordon, you will have some fired up people in your mentions. Chuba Hubbard.
I love Chuba. Let's put him at 10.
10?
Let's put him at 10.
Okay.
He was phenomenal, but if Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, and Melvin Gordon are also in here, we've got to have some some dogs. And like Chuba Hubbard, I love Chuba Hubbard. He plays for the Panthers.
Not quite the same dog level these other guys.
I don't think so.
All right. I'll be curious where you put this one. Trent Richardson.
Oh, gosh.
Now, remember, this is based off of college.
Strictly college.
Not based off of running into his own offensive lineman's backs in the NFL.
I'll put him at 7.
I would say he still didn't have, like, if you go back and watch, like, the vision still isn't incredible in college when you kind of go back hindsight.
Yeah.
Because he was just so good at everything else. But, like, I still think he's, below a bunch of these guys. Cam Scatterbo.
All right. Don't hate me. He had 1 year of greatness. 1 year of greatness. So I'm going to throw him at 6.
Oh, you're putting him higher than I thought you would.
That 1 year was phenomenal. It was very underrated. I don't think people gave him enough hype until late when people started to figure out who he was. But, man, maybe I made a mistake by putting him at 6, but I think he deserves to be.
We're going to see with this next one how you feel. Let's go Trevor Etienne.
Oh, God. I have to put him. All right, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Trevor Etienne is like another one that's like one of the greatest running backs in college football history, and people don't talk about him that way, and it's mind-boggling to me.
Trevor Etienne probably doesn't get as enough love because, I mean,
oh, you said Trevor Etienne.
My bad. I'm thinking Travis. Travis.
Oh, okay,
I get him mixed up. No, Travis Etienne probably does not get as much love as he should because he stood next to Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
I get that part mixed up because it's Trevor Lawrence, but Travis Etienne, but he's got a brother named Trevor.
Yeah, it is confusing.
It throws me off.
Let's put
Travis
him at 3.
Etienne.
Let's put him at 3 because he didn't win a Heisman, and I'm hoping that by me putting him at 3, that there's a Heisman winner on here that I can justify not putting him 1. So I'm going 3 for Travis Etienne.
Yeah, Travis Etienne. I mean, Travis Etienne ran for almost 5,000 yards in college. And you got to remember his last year was the COVID year. So he didn't even play a full schedule. If he had played one more
game.
Put
him number 1. Put him number 1.
Okay. Well, that I will say.
No, keep him 3. Keep him 3. Keep him 3.
Leonard Fournette.
He's number 1. He's number 1, and I'm gonna be pissed off when I see who 8 and 9 are gonna be. But he's number 1.
I think he might be okay here. Blake Corum.
9. I never was pleased with Blake Corum. I mean, I thought he was good. I thought he had some freaking maulers in front of him that made his life a hell of a lot easier. But
final one, Kenneth Walker.
I honestly, I probably would have had Kenneth Walker at 7 and Trent Richardson at 8, but I'm not mad at him being at 8.
Recap here: we got Leonard Fournette at 1, Saquon Barkley at 2, Travis Etienne at 3, Dalvin Cook at 4, Melvin Gordon at 5, Cam Scatterbo at 6, Trent Richardson at 7, Kenneth Walker at 8, Blake Corum at 9, Chuba Hubbard at 10. I think you have Cam Scatterbo a little high, but Trent Richardson did win a Heisman.
You're right. Oh my gosh. You know what?
I think that everybody's just so blinded by how bad he was in the NFL because he was the 3rd overall pick and just was absolutely terrible.
Honestly, the only thing I really would change, I would put Etienne at 2 and Barkley at 3.
I might have Barkley at 1, honestly. If I was to rank these, I might put Barkley at 1.
Etienne did it for 4 years and did it phenomenally.
Barkley didn't need to do it for 4 years because he left after 3, and then he went 2nd overall.
But touche. I mean, I'm not mad at this. I think this is good. I think humbly, I think I did a good job back to back. I'm a good blind person.
You're a good blind person. Next week that means we're doing wide receivers.
Yeah, I know I'm gonna blow that one up. Not in a good way.
because there's going to be some studs out there that you're going to.
Speaking of stud wide receivers from the past, Justin Blackmon. Did you see his mugshot?
Yeah, he has not aged well.
Oh man, like it's sad.
Yeah, it's very sad. Justin Blackmon, was going to be an all-time legend, especially in college football. Should have been a great player in the NFL too, and then just could not stay out of trouble.
Yeah, couldn't put the alcohol down.
Yeah, could not put.
Well, he could put it down. He couldn't not drink it.
He could put it down for sure, and then he decides to pick up his keys and drive.
Yeah.
All right, that does it for this week's episode. Next week, we will be back to do the SEC, and then who knows? We've got a couple weeks still till really preview season kicks up, but I'm sure we'll come up with some great ideas here to help fill the void for the next couple weeks.
That's right.
But until then, we'll be back, and we'll see you guys again next week.